This is my parents' dining room. There's an echo in this room. I'm sorry about that. This wallpaper has become something of a joke between my mom and I because in the 10 years that my parents have lived here, she's made a lot of changes to this house. The previous owners of this house had a weird affinity for wallpaper, and most of it was tacky as hell. So a lot of my mom's changes to the house have involved getting rid of shitty wallpaper. I have a deep loathing for this wallpaper. Maybe you can't tell how bad it is in there. The fact that it's blurry maybe helps, I'm not sure. Nobody else hates this wallpaper the way that I do, so perhaps it's just a personal taste thing. But like, look, so there's the wallpaper, and then there's this border, and then there's another wallpaper. I don't really like any of it, but none of them are individually offensive. The thing is, this is a pretty small room, and they're all so loud and together, and why? My parents went house hunting in Missouri the summer before I started high school. The house hunting trip fell like 1 or 2 weeks before the final community theater show that I did in LA. And because we moved after I started high school, I was a big brat about the whole moving thing in general. So I stayed at home, got a ride from theater. It was only a couple days. My parents weren't too worried about my ability to fend for myself. I got into no trouble as a kid and spent my non-theater time like hanging out on the internet, so they weren't worried. They sent me links to listings for all the houses that they were looking at. And while all the houses had, you know, pictures of some of the rooms, this house was the only one that did like the 360-degree tour. I imagine that's probably pretty standard now. I haven't hunted for a house recently, so I don't know. But at the time, this was the only house that we looked at that had it, and the picture quality was really bad. My parents wanted to, you know, have my input on the house thing. At 14, I think my opinion was basically something along the lines of, "You're ruining my life." But when I called to check in on where they were at with looking at houses, they happened to be in this house. And truly the only thing I remember about their house hunting process was that conversation. Specifically, what I remember is looking at the 360-degree view of this room online while my brother stood in here looking at it. And we just made fun of it for at least 2 whole minutes. Which doesn't sound like a long time, but like for a 14 and 18-year-old to be discussing wallpaper, 2 whole minutes is a pretty long time. And in all the run-up to us moving to Missouri, that conversation was probably the only time the subject ever made me laugh. That or the time that my best friend and I were drawing with chalk and talking about how I was gonna become a farmer. But that's a story for another day. And then we moved here, my mom kept making all these changes to the house, and yet for whatever reason, this wallpaper would not go away. I turned on the camera like without having a point in mind, and I hoped that I would just sort of talk and then I'd figure out like a point. That didn't really happen. Good riddance, wallpaper. Maybe you'll see my face again soon talking about more interesting things than chocolate that I receive in the mail or wallpaper. Bye!